Hey, welcome to this video with more on bills, expense, and savings goals. So this is the view for bills, expense, and savings goals. You'll recall you just click on this option, bills, expense, and savings from the main screen to get to this. So you can scroll up and down to see your list of all the different categories you've defined. One kind of handy thing is you'll notice the search option at the very top. So if I'm looking for a certain item, I know somewhere in the list there's something to do with groceries, for example, I can just put in part of groceries and easily navigate to it. You may also recall that you can long press on any item. So if you long press on it, you can edit, delete, or copy. In this video, I wanted to show a few examples of creating some new expenses and savings goals, just to show you some of the different options. So if I create a new expense, of course I can give a name to it. I'm going to give this a name of just test expense, and I can specify an amount. And notice you've got a number of different options here in terms of frequency. So you can define that I'm going to spend $100 every week on this expense, every month. You can also do them by paycheck. So for example, maybe you want to allocate a certain amount of money to this expense from each of your paychecks. So these were two of the income sources I defined. So I'm getting paychecks from company ABC and from hospital X. So you can define that, or take some money from every paycheck. Or one really handy option is this one, the last one, every month of. If you click on that, you can say, for example, every month of August. So if I was to create an expense like this, essentially what that says is I'm going to be spending $100 every August. So it's like an annual expense. And that's really, really handy for things like seasonal or annual expenses. Think about things like holidays, Christmas, Hanukkah, those kind of holidays. Maybe you spend some money on gifts every November for Christmas, for example. You could easily create an expense here and say, I want to be able to I want to spend $200 on Christmas gifts every November. And what that will do, if you define an expense like this, is when you're creating a plan, if you create a plan and you reach November, it'll automatically include, oops, I put $20 instead of 200. When you're creating a November plan in the future, every time you create a November plan, it'll automatically include this in the plan. So that's great. Rather than trying to remember all of these infrequent bills and expenses, you can easily use that method to define them. So that's a really, really handy thing. Another thing I want to show very quickly is some different options for savings goals. So there's three different options here for savings. One is, for example, I want to save $1,000 by a certain date. Some date in the future, I want to save $1,000 by September 30th. Because I want to put that money away for an upcoming vacation. So that's an easy way to define a savings goal. You can just specify a certain amount by a certain date. But you can also do things like have regular savings. Like you can say, I want to save a certain amount a month. Maybe I want to save $300 every month for a car replacement. At some point in the future, I'm going to need to replace my car. So you could define it that way. I want a certain amount of money every month. And finally, you can say every paycheck, I want a certain amount of money to come out. So I want $150 to come out for a certain savings goal, and I want it to come from any of these options, from one of my specific paychecks or any paycheck for a certain amount. So those are three different modes you can use to define savings goals that are really, really handy. So again, in your budgeting, as you're creating spending plans, when you're thinking about savings, you can think about things like goals for purchases, for major purchases. Maybe you need to replace an appliance or a vehicle. Save up for things like vacations, and also regular savings. If you're contributing to a retirement plan or just some regular savings for the future, some investments and things like that, then you can also define those here and make sure they're included in your plan. Okay, that's all for this short video. A little bit more information on bills, expenses, and savings goals in Money Compass.